When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. Not because I was strong, not because I agreed, but because I had already cried enough. Long before that day ever came, I remember standing near the doorway, holding my small cloth bag. Inside it were a few clothes, my medicines, and an old photo of my son as a child. My hands were shaking, but my face stayed calm. My daughter-in-law didn't raise her voice. She didn't shout or insult me. She just said, "Amy, it will be better if you stay somewhere else for a while." For a moment, I looked at my son. I waited for him to say something, anything, but he didn't meet my eyes. That silence hurt more than her words. I nodded slowly. I said, "Okay." And just like that, I walked out of the house where I had once dreamed of growing old with my son. As I stepped outside, the door closed softly behind me. No drama, no shouting, just a quiet ending to a relationship I never thought I would lose that day. I realized something painful. My son did not leave me suddenly. He slipped away slowly, one small moment at a time. I am a simple woman. I never went to college. I never learned big words or fancy ways. All I knew was how to love my family, how to keep a home warm. My husband passed away when my son was only 8 years old. Life became very quiet after that, too quiet. From that day on, my world became smaller. It was just me and my son. I worked wherever I could, sometimes stitching clothes, sometimes cleaning homes, sometimes cooking for others. Every night, no matter how tired I was, I came home early because my son was waiting. I used to watch him sleep, his small chest rising and falling. I would whisper to myself, "This is my purpose. This is my life." I did not feel lonely back then, because love filled every empty space. As he grew older, he became my pride. He studied hard. He listened to me. People would say, "You raised him well," and I believed them. I taught him simple things: respect elders, speak softly, never forget where you came from. When he got his first job, he brought sweets home. He smiled like a little boy again. He said, "Amy, this is for you." That moment lives in my heart even now. When he told me he wanted to marry, my heart felt both happy and afraid. Happy, because every mother wants to see her child settled. Afraid, because I knew life would change. I met the girl before the wedding. She was polite, quiet. She touched my feet and smiled. I thought, Allah has been kind. I have gained a daughter. I imagined us cooking together, sharing stories, laughing in the kitchen. I imagined sitting together in the evenings, watching my son come home from work. I imagined becoming one family. On the wedding day, I cried, but those were happy tears. I held my son's face and said, "Always be kind. Always remember your home." He nodded, he promised, and I believed him. The changes did not come all at once. They came quietly at first. My son stopped eating breakfast with me. He was always in a hurry. Then he stopped asking about my day. He stopped sharing his worries. I told myself, he is married now. This is normal. Then the laughter disappeared. The house became quiet again. But this time, it was a different kind of silence at dinner. Conversations were short, sometimes none at all. My daughter-in-law stayed in her room. I stayed in mine. We were under the same roof but living in separate worlds. Sometimes I tried to talk to her. I asked, "Did you eat?" She would smile politely and say, "Yes, Amy," and that was all. I felt like a guest in my own home. At night, I would lie awake, listening to the sounds of the house, the ceiling fan, the ticking clock. I missed the old noise, my son calling out, "Amy, where are you?" I missed being needed one night. I heard them laughing in their room. I smiled in the dark. At least he was happy. That was always my prayer, even if I was no longer part of his happiness. Still, a small fear lived inside me, a fear I never spoke aloud. That fear whispered, "He is slowly forgetting you." And I prayed I was wrong. I did not know then thought these small changes were signs. I did not know that love can fade without anger, and I did not know that the hardest pain comes quietly, without warning. The distance between us did not grow because of one big fight. It grew because of many small moments that were easy to ignore. It first, I noticed my son no longer told me when he would come home late. Before, he would call and say, "Amy, don't wait for dinner." Now, the food would get cold on the table and I would sit alone, staring at the door. When he finally came, he looked tired. I didn't complain. I just warmed the food again. Sometimes he ate quickly and went to his room. Sometimes he said he had already eaten outside. I told myself, he is busy. Life is heavy after marriage. But deep inside, something felt wrong. One evening, my sister called. She was planning a small family gathering. She said, "Bring your son and daughter-in-law. We haven't seen them." I felt happy. I missed sitting with my family. When I told my son, he hesitated. He looked at his wife before answering. She said softly, We already have plans. I didn't know about any plans, but I smiled and said, it's okay. Another time, that night, they stayed home. They watched something on their phone. I sat in my room, listening to laughter that did not include me. It was the first time I felt truly alone in that house. The kitchen used to be my place, my comfort, my control. Slowly, that changed to my daughter-in-law started cooking separately. Different food, different time at first. I thought she wanted privacy. I respected that. But soon, she stopped eating what I cooked. She stopped asking me anything once. I gently asked, is the food not good? She smiled without looking at me and said, it's fine, Amy. I just prefer my own cooking. That word prefer stayed with me for days. I stopped cooking for them after that. I cooked only for myself. The kitchen became quiet, no clattering dishes, no shared meals, just silence and smells that no longer meant family. My son used to sit with me in the evenings. We talked about small things, neighbors, work, old memories now. His phone was always in his hand when I spoke. He nodded, but his eyes stayed on the screen. Sometimes I stopped talking, mid-sentence. He didn't notice. That hurt more than being ignored completely. One day, I said softly, you don't talk to me much anymore. He replied, without looking up, Amy, nothing has changed. But everything had changed. One afternoon, my daughter-in-law came to me. Her voice was calm, respectful. She said, Amy, you should rest more. You've done enough in life. I didn't understand at first. I smiled and said, yes, Beta. Later, I realized what she meant. She was telling me to step back. From the house, from decisions, from my son's life. I began to feel old, unnecessary, like furniture that once mattered but was now pushed to the corner. One morning, I forgot to switch off the water tap. It flooded part of the kitchen floor. It was a small mistake. I apologized immediately. My daughter-in-law wiped the floor silently. My son stood nearby later. I heard her whisper, this keeps happening. My son did not defend me. He did not say, she is old. It happens. He stayed quiet. That silence cut deeper than anger ever could. I started becoming careful. Careful. I walked slowly. I touched things. Gently, I checked twice before doing anything. Still, I felt like I was always in the way. Once, I overheard her say, it's difficult managing everything. I don't think she meant to hurt me, but she didn't know I heard. From that day, I stopped asking for help. Even when my knees hurt, even when my chest felt heavy. I learned how to disappear quietly. My son stopped sitting with me. Altogether, he came home and went straight to his room. When I tried to talk, he said, later. Amy later never came. I stopped waiting for him at night. I stopped warming food. I ate early and slept early, like a stranger renting a room sometimes. I cried into my pillow. Silently. I did not want anyone to hear. One day, he brought sweets home again, just like old times. My heart jumped. I said, what is the occasion? He said, office work. I smiled anyway for a few minutes. We talked just like before. That night, I slept peacefully. But the next day, everything went back to how it was. That hope faded. Quickly, I began to understand. Something painful my son was not choosing. Cruelty he was choosing. Comfort. And I was no longer part of that comfort. I didn't blame him. I didn't blame her. But I started grieving not because I lost my son suddenly, but because I was losing him slowly. Right in front of my eyes, I still believed could improve. I still believed it would speak one day. I didn't know the hardest moment was still waiting for me. The moment that would break my heart quietly and change everything. The turning point did not arrive with shouting. It did not arrive with anger or sudden drama. It arrived quietly, like the shadow of a door closing slowly behind me. One evening, my son called me to the living room. I thought we would talk. I thought maybe things could change. He said softly, Amy, can we talk? I smiled. Finally, a moment of connection, but my heart sank. The instant I saw his face, not sad, not angry, just detached, took a deep breath. And then he said, Amy, maybe it's better if you stay somewhere else for a while? I froze. Somewhere else. I whispered. Yes, he said, avoiding my eyes. I think we need space. My daughter-in-law stood behind him, silent, watching. I wanted to speak. I wanted to say something, anything, but my voice caught in my throat. I realized, slowly, this was not temporary. This was permanent. The house where I had given my love, my life, my entire being, was no longer mine. I did not argue. I did not cry. I nodded slowly and said, okay. Later, when I was in my room, I realized what had happened. This was the culmination of all those small silences, the Laughter. I was no longer part of the dinners. We did not share. The conversations I could not reach. All those moments had built. Upinto, this quiet betrayal. It hurt more than any shouting could have because it was calm, calculated, and unnoticed by him. After that day, everything changed. I started sleeping in a separate room, eating quietly, speaking only when necessary. The living room, the kitchen, even the hallway, all of it felt foreign. I walked past my son, and he did not notice me. I tried to remember the little things that used to make him smile. The stories we shared, the food he liked, the jokes we laughed at together. None of it mattered anymore. One night, I waited for him to come back from work. I had made his favorite food, kept the plate warm on the table when he came home. He went straight to his room, did not say hello, did not glance at the food. I sat there for hours, the smell of the food filling the empty silence. Finally, I whispered to myself, "He is gone. He is truly gone." I cried quietly into my hands. I did not want anyone to hear, I did not want him to see, but the tears came. Anyway, for the son I raised, for the home that no longer had a place for me. In the days that followed, he continued to drift further. He did not call, he did not ask, he did not share a single part of his life with me. One evening, I saw him laughing with his friends on video call. I tried to speak to him. "Amy," he said absent-mindedly, "can you leave me alone? I'm busy." The words were soft, but the meaning was sharp. I was no longer important. I realized then that all the small moments, the dinners, the silences, the changes had led to this. I was no longer his mother in the ways that mattered. I started spending more time outside the house, walking in the garden, visiting neighbors. Finding excuses to be anywhere but inside. Inside, I felt invisible. Unseen. Unwanted. Sometimes I caught glimpses of him laughing with her, smiling at her, listening to her, and I would step back quietly, pretending I was okay. But every night when I closed my eyes, the emptiness returned. It was during one of these nights that I understood something painful. My son had not intentionally hurt me. He had not forgotten me suddenly. He had changed slowly, like water wearing away stone, and the woman he married had become his center. I was no longer part of that center. Not in the way I used to be. It hurt more than anger ever could, because it was real, because it was quiet, because it was permanent. I whispered to myself, life changes, people change, and love sometimes drifts away. That night I did not cry loudly. I did not scream. I simply lay in bed, feeling the weight of absence. I thought of my son as a little boy again, running to me, smiling, needing me, and I realized that even if he no longer needed me now, he had once been my everything, and that was something no one could take away. After that night, life settled into a quiet rhythm. I woke. I ate. I walked. I slept. I did not wait for him anymore. I did not hope for calls that would never come. I realized that I could not force love. I could not demand attention. I could only choose how I lived. I started spending more time outside the house. The garden became my friend. The small park nearby became my refuge. Neighbors greeted me warmly, and I began talking to them more often. It was strange at first. I felt guilty for being happy outside the house, but I also knew I had to survive, quietly in my own way. Acceptance was not sudden, it was slow. One evening, while watering the plants, I whispered to myself, my son is not lost. He is just somewhere else now, and that is okay. I still love him. I cannot force him to love me back the same way. I remembered all the little moments that had led to this, the silences, the missed conversations, the separate dinners. I understood that none of it was really malicious. Life had changed him. Marriage had changed him, and I had to change, too. I thought about the lessons I wanted to teach him: respect, love, patience, all the things I had tried to give him. I realized that love is not always about presence. Sometimes, love is giving someone the space to grow, even if it means they drift away from you. I started writing small letters, not to send them, but to speak my heart. I wrote about my memories with him, about the joy of raising him, and about my wishes for his happiness, even if he never read them. It felt like a conversation, a way to stay connected to the son I loved. One rainy afternoon, I sat by the window listening to the water tap gently, dripping. I thought about all the times I had felt hurt, and I let myself feel it fully. No holding back, no pretending to be strong. And then I let it go. Not the memories, not the love, but the pain. I realized that life had given me a gift, the ability to survive heartbreak with quiet dignity. Weeks later, my son came home late one evening. He hesitated at the doorway. I looked up and smiled, not with expectation, not with demand. He approached me and said softly, "Amy, I missed you today." It was a small sentence, but it meant the world. I nodded. "Welcome home," I whispered. We did not talk about the past. We did not argue. We just sat together quietly for the first time in months. The house felt warm. I understood then that relationships are never static. They grow, they change, they drift. But love, real love, is patient, even when it is quiet, even when it is one-sided. For a while I stopped wishing for him to be the same son I raised. I started wishing for him to be happy, even if that happiness sometimes did not include me in the evenings. I often sit by the window. I watch the sky turn gold. I listen to the wind through the trees, and I whisper to myself, life takes, life gives, life changes. But love remains quiet, patient, and infinite. I have learned that even if my son drifts away, I am still his mother always. And that is enough. Time moves quietly. Almost unnoticed, I have learned to live with the spaces he left behind. The empty chairs, the quiet hallways, the slow footsteps that no longer echo with laughter. I do not resent him anymore. I do not resent her. I do not resent life. I only feel the love I have always had, steady and calm, like the river that never stops flowing, even when the water changes course. I remember the boy who once ran into my arms. I remember the little hand I held in the rain. I remember the nights I whispered prayers for him. All of it remains. All of it belongs to me, and I understand. Not those memories are not lost just because he is distant. They are mine to keep. And one day, perhaps he will remember too. Love is not always about presence. Love is not always about being needed. Sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes love is letting go. Sometimes love is patience. Sometimes love is holding someone in your heart. Even when they are far away, I have learned that love does not demand. It only gives. And in giving, it finds its own peace. I still hope that one day he will come back to me fully, not out of duty, but out of love. Until then, I carry him in my heart. I talk to him in my mind. I smile at the memories we shared, and I pray quietly for his happiness, even if it does not include me, because love is never selfish, even when it hurts at night. I often sit by the window. The sky is soft and calm. The stars twinkle gently. I whisper to the world, I am still here, I am still loving, and that is enough. The door may close behind me. The footsteps may fade away. The laughter may belong to another place. But love remains patient, quiet, infinite, and in that love, I find peace.